All right, so, we've been really getting into this whole idea of yoga lately, and
Yeah.
you sent in this YouTube lecture,
Oh,
actually.
cool.
It's called The Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda. This is like volume 1.3.1.
Okay.
Raja Yoga, chapter 1,
Oh.
introductory.
Wow.
Full audiobook,
Yeah.
and it's from Shravanam.org.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm kind of excited about this one.
Yeah. Vivekananda is really interesting. I think what's really striking is just his perspective on, spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
He was really trying to bridge this gap between, faith and reason.
Yeah.
And he makes this argument that like a true understanding of religion should be,
Well,
just as rigorous and evidence-based as any scientific field.
yeah, it's like he's saying that religion should be like one of the exact sciences,
Yeah, exactly.
where you can test out the observations
Yeah.
and verify for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think he's saying we should apply that same scrutiny to our spiritual understanding.
Exactly. He's basically saying don't just blindly accept dogma. Right.
Seek out direct personal experience as the foundation for what you believe.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating is how he talks about how all these different religions have this kind of common thread.
Right.
Whether it's Jesus or Buddha,
Yeah.
all these different spiritual leaders, their teachings weren't just like, coming out of thin air.
Right.
They were rooted in these really profound personal experiences, what they claim to have directly perceived.
Yeah.
So it's not about throwing out religion altogether. It's more about approaching it with that same kind of critical thinking and curiosity that we use in other areas of life.
Exactly. And that's where Raja Yoga comes in.
Okay.
You can think of it as like a method,
Right.
a systematic way of exploring these inner truths.
Okay. So we're using the scientific method,
Yeah.
but we're turning it inwards.
Yeah.
So instead of a telescope or a microscope, we're using like the power of our own attention
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
to kind of explore the workings of our own minds. And one of the core principles here is this connection between the mind and the body.
Yeah.
Vivekananda emphasizes that these aren't separate entities.
Yeah.
They're constantly influencing each other.
Yeah. And it's like he brings up the example of food,
Right.
how it not only affects our physical energy levels,
Yeah.
but it also affects our mental clarity
Yeah.
and even our emotional state,
Absolutely.
which I think we can all relate to.
Yeah, for sure.
If I eat a big greasy meal,
Oh, yeah.
I'm definitely not as sharp.
Exactly. And it highlights how our, physical habits and choices
Yeah.
directly impact our mental and emotional well-being.
Right.
And so Raja Yoga is really powerful in that it provides, specific techniques for regulating these influences.
Oh, wow.
Imagine having like tools
Yeah.
to gain greater control over your internal states.
That would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Now, this is where things get really interesting to me, because he seems to suggest that mastering our inner world could actually give us the ability to influence the world outside of us.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like a superpower.
It's definitely a bold claim.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, if we can understand and control these more subtle forces within us,
Yeah.
we might be able to, have a greater influence on these larger forces of nature.
So like the laws of physics and stuff.
He's really challenging those limitations that we tend to see in the natural world.
Totally. So to understand how that's even possible, I think we have to go a little bit deeper into what he calls the Sankhya philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which he suggests is kind of the theoretical foundation for how Raja Yoga works.
All right, let's unpack that a bit.
Right.
So before we get into the specifics, it
Yeah.
helps to understand the basic idea behind Sankhya.
Okay.
It's built on this concept of duality.
Okay.
So there's Purusha, which represents pure consciousness.
Right.
And then there's Prakriti, which is everything else like the material world.
Okay.
And so Sankhya explores how these two interact to create our experiences.
So how does this relate to, how we experience the world around us?
Well, Sankhya describes this really fascinating process.
Okay.
It starts with something in the external world, like, let's say, a sound or a sight.
Okay.
Our senses pick that up,
Yeah.
and then that sensory information gets transmitted to the mind.
It's like a relay race.
Exactly.
The information's passed from one runner to the next.
The mind then processes that information,
Right.
sorts it out, and then it gets passed on to the intellect, which
Right.
is responsible for deeper understanding.
Oh,
And then finally, this processed information gets presented to the soul, or Purusha,
okay.
where it's actually experienced.
So like there's this whole chain of command.
Yeah.
And the soul is kind of at the top,
Right.
experiencing the world through this filter of the senses and the mind and the intellect.
That's a great analogy.
So the techniques of Raja Yoga are basically about refining this whole process.
Exactly. Purify and sharpening our perception so we can access these deeper levels of awareness and understanding.
So it's like upgrading our mental software.
Yeah.
So we can experience reality in a more profound way.
Precisely. And what I really appreciate about Vivekananda is he was so passionate about demystifying yoga.
Yeah.
You know, he was totally against secrecy.
Yeah.
He encouraged open inquiry.
Yeah, he wanted people to test these teachings out for themselves.
Exactly, using reason and personal experience.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it.
Right.
Try it out and see what happens.
Exactly. He believed that truth can stand on its own.
Yeah.
It doesn't need, rituals or esoteric language to make it valid.
So Raja Yoga isn't about blind faith.
Right.
It's about taking an active role in our own spiritual exploration.
Yeah.
Becoming more like scientists.
Exactly.
In the laboratory of our own minds.
Yeah. That's a great way to sum it up. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll actually delve into some of the specific practices and techniques that Raja Yoga offers for achieving this inner mastery.
Right, I'm ready.
And, for Vivekananda, it wasn't just enough to understand this stuff intellectually.
Right.
You have to actually put it into practice.
Yeah, it's one thing to kind of grasp the theory.
Right.
But then to actually train the mind and cultivate that kind of inner awareness he's talking about.
Yeah, and that's where the discipline and techniques of Raja Yoga come into play.
Okay.
Remember he compared this to scientific experimentation.
Yep.
Just as a scientist carefully designs experiments and observes the results.
Yeah.
A Raja Yogi uses specific techniques to systematically kind of explore and refine their inner world.
And it takes work.
Oh, absolutely.
He makes it clear, this is not a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's not a weekend workshop.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
You got to put in the time.
Yeah, he emphasizes consistent practice is key.
Right.
Developing a deep familiarity with the workings of your own mind.
Yeah.
And gradually, gaining mastery over your thoughts and emotions.
And the ability to calm your mind.
Yeah.
In the midst of a stressful situation.
Absolutely.
That would be an amazing skill.
Using just the power of your focus, that's one of the potential benefits of Raja Yoga.
Yeah, and it's interesting how he talks about the connection between the mind and body in this process.
Yeah.
How our physical state can influence our mental state and vice versa.
Absolutely.
So it's not just all mental.
Right, it's this holistic system.
And it's so true how, he talks about what we eat, how much we sleep, how much exercise we get, how it can affect our mental clarity.
Our emotional state.
It's like if I don't get enough sleep,
I
am just
a mess.
A mess.
Totally.
But if I get, a good night's rest and I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising, it makes a huge difference.
He's encouraging us to really pay attention to those aspects of our lives.
Right.
To make choices that support our mental and spiritual growth.
It's really about cultivating a more holistic lifestyle, I guess.
Exactly.
That supports our well-being on kind of all levels.
Right. It's about recognizing that the mind and body are interconnected.
Yeah.
And true mastery comes from harmonizing both.
And I love how he compares the mind to a beam of light.
Yeah.
When our mental energy is scattered, it's like a weak, diffused light.
Right.
But when we can concentrate that mental energy, it becomes like a powerful, focused beam.
Yeah, it can illuminate even the darkest corners.
That is such a good analogy.
And he even suggests that focused mental energy, that beam of light, can potentially be directed outward to influence the external world.
This is the part that's always seemed a little far-fetched to me.
Okay.
How can our inner state actually influence the physical world around us?
He doesn't really go into detail about how that works.
Right.
But he alludes to this idea that the external world is in a sense a manifestation of the internal world.
Okay.
And he suggests that the finer forces of the mind can potentially influence the grosser forces of matter.
So maybe it's helpful to think about it like a ripple effect.
Okay.
A small change in our inner world can kind of create these larger ripples that extend outward.
That's a good way to visualize it.
Right.
And remember, he grounded his teachings in his personal experience.
Right.
And he encouraged others to verify these principles for themselves.
He's not asking for blind faith.
Exactly.
It's like experiment and see for yourself.
And on a more practical level, he acknowledges that, this path of Raja Yoga is not necessarily for everyone.
Right. It requires a lot of commitment.
It requires a certain level of commitment and discipline.
Yeah.
He's very clear that Raja Yoga is a demanding practice.
It's not a casual hobby.
Not a casual hobby.
It's not a quick fix.
It's really about making a conscious choice to embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation.
And he even mentions specific lifestyle choices
that
are kind of conducive to this path.
Yes, like avoiding extremes of luxury and austerity.
Right.
He emphasizes moderation and balance in all things.
Yeah.
Because, extremes can be distracting and detrimental to our mental and spiritual progress.
Totally.
So, for example, overindulging in luxury can make us attached to material comforts.
Right.
While excessive austerity can lead to unnecessary hardship and deprivation.
Yeah.
Neither of those extremes is really conducive to true inner peace and clarity.
It's about finding that middle path.
Exactly, that sweet spot.
Where you're taking care of your basic needs, but you're not getting caught up in excess or deprivation.
And he ties this back to the mind as well.
Yeah.
He argues that, just as our physical body needs the right kind of nourishment to thrive,
Right.
our mind needs the right kind of food as well.
Right.
And he's talking about the thoughts that we allow into our minds, the company we keep.
Right.
The activities that we engage in.
And I think this is where his warnings against mystery mongering and secrecy surrounding yoga come in.
Totally. He was very critical of those who try to shroud these teachings in this unnecessary mystique.
It's like he wanted to strip away those layers of obfuscation.
Exactly.
And just present Raja Yoga as like this clear, practical path.
Exactly.
Of self-discovery and empowerment.
He saw Raja Yoga as a science of the mind.
Yeah.
A system for exploring the inner world with the same rigor and clarity that we apply to the outer world.
And that's what makes his teachings, I think, so compelling.
Even today,
Because he's really empowering us.
Yeah.
To become active seekers of truth.
Rather than passive followers of dogma.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're kind of intrigued by this idea of this blend of science and spirituality, of self-exploration and mastery, maybe it's time to take a deeper look at Raja Yoga.
I agree. Remember, Swami Vivekananda's teachings really encourage us to approach these practices with the scientific mindset.
Yeah. Test the principles for yourself. Observe the results in your own life.
He's inviting us to become explorers of our own inner landscape.
That's a great way to put it.
To unlock the potential of our minds and experience the world in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
And speaking of exploring new perspectives,
okay.
I thought it was interesting how Vivekananda kind of drew this parallel between how different cultures approach controlling nature.
Yeah.
Like, he was saying that some societies focus on mastering the external world through technology and engineering, while others emphasize inner mastery through practices like yoga and meditation.
Exactly. It's like two different approaches to understanding and harnessing the forces of nature.
And it's interesting because he doesn't see these as mutually exclusive.
Right.
It's not about choosing one over the other.
Yeah. It's not either or.
Ultimately, both paths are aiming for a deeper understanding of the universe and our place in it.
And he even suggests that
as we push the boundaries of our knowledge in both the internal and external realms, we kind of eventually arrive at the same point.
It all kind of converges.
Yeah, recognition of the underlying unity of all things.
Yeah, it's like those optical illusions.
Oh, yeah.
You can see two different images.
Right.
Depending on how you focus your eyes.
Yeah.
We might initially perceive this division between mind and matter.
Yeah.
Between the inner and outer world.
Right.
But then as we develop a deeper understanding, we start to see that interconnectedness of it all.
Absolutely.
And Raja Yoga offers this path to directly experience that interconnectedness.
Right. Not just intellectually grasp it, but to actually feel it.
Yeah. So what would it actually mean to live with that kind of expanded awareness?
Right. What would it be like?
How would it change our perspective?
Yeah.
On ourselves, the world, our place in it.
How would it change how we interact with others?
Yeah, it's a big question.
It is a question we all have to kind of explore for ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling kind of inspired, by these insights from Vivekananda.
I encourage you to delve deeper into the practices and the philosophy of Raja Yoga.
Yeah, experiment with those techniques. For focusing your attention.
For calming your mind.
Yeah, for connecting with that deeper sense of self.
And see what you discover.
He's given us this really amazing glimpse into this world where science and spirituality can converge.
Right. It's not about choosing one or the other.
And where the power of the mind can potentially unlock these profound insights and capabilities.
Absolutely. And through dedicated practice and self-exploration, you might just discover those truths for yourself.
So dive in.
Explore.
Experiment.
Keep questioning.
And remember, the most profound discoveries often begin with a single question.
Right.
A spark of curiosity.
That willingness to look within.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we've come to the end of our deep dive
into Raja Yoga.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has.
And to all of you listening out there, we hope this has been insightful and thought-provoking.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
Until next time.